Hello everyone. Today I'd like to talk about the article "The Trials of Turkey Military Coup Organizer and Political Implication" by Carol Hojawa. Um, in early April 2012, the trial of former President of Turkey, General Kenan Ervin, and the former Commander of Air Forces, General Tahsin, both whom headed the 90s military coup, started in Ankara. So let me explain a little bit what happens in or the incidents of 90s, 80s coup. 90s 80 coup was a coup performed by General Kenan Ervin, the former president of Turkey, and together with General Tahsin Shinikaya, the former commander of the air forces. And because of the incidents, Turkey passed the 1980 Constitution Act, restriction civil liberties and guarantee military leaders immunity from prosecution. Later, after the coup, like 3 years after the coup, 50 people sentenced to death and executed. About 200 died in prison after being tortured, and many were declared missing or enforcedly disappeared. During the same period, about 650,000 people were imprisoned, and 4,000 had their citizenship revoked. Although repression reached both left-wing and Islamic right-wing, together with all trade union and political parties, were all banned, and their leaders were imprisoned. Moreover, the Council of Higher Education took control of all universities in Turkey and expelled a student and sacked professor with left-wing leaning. After a postmodern coup in 1979 happens again. I'd like to explain what happens in 1979. Among the 4 coups in the history of Republic of Turkey, the strangest one was on February 28, 1997, when the National Security Council, which called MGK, held an emergency meeting and forced the government to sign a decree that stood as memorandum. The decree of February 28 divided by alliances, or divided by an alliance between the military and bureaucracy, are commonly referred to the post-modern coup. They brought especially important political and economic social reform in Turkey, or what they were claimed, at least. So in February 1997, military ended the administration of Prime Minister Erbakan, aimed concern by generals about its alleged Islamist program. Turkey National Security Council (NSC) held an emergency meeting that lasted almost 9 hours, the longest ever single session in the NC's history. The meeting produced what what would come later to be known as February 28th Memorandum, which contained list of resolutions by Turkish military taken in response to what it deemed raising Islamist ideology. The military then forced Erbakan to sign a slew of decrees, including a ban on headscarf and shutting down Imam Hatib school, and although measure even given the military control over media and all the nation was forcibly raised or went eventually to Kemalist Foundation, which is mainly the main supporter for the coup. And also on June 18, the military went even further, forcing Erbakan's entire government to resign, leaving the premiership in the Siller hand. Now I'd like to move to the trial of the army officers 2012. Which the coup mastermind punished. In April 2012, Turkish prosecutor issued arrest warrant for dozens of former officers. In late March 2012, Turkish prosecutor demands prison sentences of 15 to 20 years for over 346 active retired officers. They are accused of belonging to organization Ergenekon, or which is so known as an ultra-nationalistic group whose goal is destabilize the country. In a landmark decision in 2018, a Turkish court sentences 21 high-level officials to life in prison for their roles or contribution in the 1997 coup. So I'd like to talk now about how the suspected organizer of the military coup were brought to face justice. After the Justice and Development Party, the AKP, came to power in 2002, this situation changed. The political and economic situation has been changed by proceeding democratic procedures. The AKP started slowly but systematically to limit the influence of the army in the public life and political life. So first, between 2002 and 2006, the judiciary took several reforms to harmonize Turkish law with European standards. In 2008, it passed the Parliament Act abolishing the ban on wearing headscarf at the universities, and also managed to take control of the higher education. UK. The AKP also abolished Article 15 of the Constitution, which was being taken into action in the 1980s coup. which has protected the leader of the 1980s coup from persecution. After the 2011 election, AKP increased its influence in Pole's public life and political life. The AKP managed to gain the trial approach as it is supported by the majority of Turkish society, mostly moderate Islamists, liberals, and national minorities, which is believed that the armed forces were a major obstacle towards the full democratization of the country, or the full development of the country, and also the country to be join the European Union in someday. So now I would like to explain, or I'd like to discuss the conclusion and recommendation by the author of this article. So the author demonstrated that the trial will ensure democratic stabilities and implies that Turkey is not at the risk of another coup, which is, I mean, in my personal opinion, which is, it was some kind of, I mean, the author fantasize or were optimistic about the trial, that he fantasized the event of the trial and go further that with the conclusion that the trial will ensure the democratic stability and ensure the coup not happen again, or the risk of another coup in Turkey, which is not the case of the status quo or the coup attempt of 2016, and that we will discuss later in the question, because I'd like to hear about what you think about this. The trial of a member of Turkish military are an indication of the diminishing influence of the army on the country. The author think that the trial of the coup leader are obvious indication of diminished influence of the army on the country. While I think it's a long-term process, and this article was written in 2012, right in the time of the trial. So it's really hard to understand and evaluate the process in the time of the process. But now, as we a while after the trial in 2012, so we can also discuss about that in the question about the perspective of the author about the indication of the diminishing influence of the army on the country. Also, the author argued that EU, or he recommended that the EU should monitor the military process during the preparation and execution of the trial to ensure transparency. And he called for a new constitution, increasing the scope of individual freedom, and he explained that the new constitution seems necessary for the same purpose, of the same matter. Well, now I'd like to